Hello, welcome to a intermediate YTPMV tutorial. I've noticed there's a lot of basic stuff or basic tutorials out there, and I wanted to do something for intermediate, maybe time-saving tricks that other people don't know. So first off, we're gonna start off with our project settings. So generally, and today everybody has good enough internet. You're gonna definitely want 60 FPS. Vegas 60 FPS works just great, and there's no problem with it. It allows for better visuals and everything. So yes, highly recommend doing 60 FPS. 1080p is also good. And go down here, resample mode, disable resample. Do not, I repeat, do not have smart resample on. That is one of the biggest regrets that I have, is I didn't listen to people until like 2018 about resample, and you notice an immediate difference as soon as you disable it, and it just looks way better. So please go disable resample. Once you have all that, save that as a custom project or as a template, and then start all new projects with these settings. So just apply that, click OK, and then that'll always be the settings that you start out with. Because otherwise, sometimes there will be a pop-up here whenever you try to bring in settings. It'll say, would you like to match the project settings with the imported media settings? Just always say no, because chances are the project media is like 720p, or maybe it's vertical but it's not quite like 1080p or whatever. So yeah, just always say no and use those project settings. So to show you why resample is bad, so here's a project I made when I used to have resample on back in 2018, smart resample on. So I'm gonna show you an example of like why this is terrible. So just pay attention to the video and I'll show you what I mean in a sec. So you see how right here I copied that frame, and I thought that that frame was here for the entire time, and you know, he's just stuck in this. Well, if you go to the actual render, this is what the actual render looks like. So even like in between frames here, right here, that's what resampling does. It blends frames together and it just looks awful. I don't know why it's the default on Vegas, but it looks really, really bad. So, so if we go here, somehow that resample, even though it was totally fine in the Vegas settings, that resample looks like this in the actual render. And even worse, during the second loop, it somehow did this, where it was like, where it's flashing, when over here it doesn't flash at all. So just an example of why you should disable resample. So also talking about video settings, so let's say you have a vertical video that you want to, like, maybe you want to do like all vines or something or whatever. So you have a vertical video here. So the easiest way that I've found to do it, if you still want it to be 1080p, is to look at like your, like, you can just match like your normal sample, and to look at the resolution of that. Now this is just 500 by 500, so that's pretty easy. It would just be 1080 by 1080, 1080 by 1080, sorry. So all you have to do is go to project settings up here, and then 1080, apply, and then there you go. Now it's a square, and this will upscale to that and everything, and there's no problem with that. So do that, and then when you render, which I also recommend having render as a loop. So generally, whenever I have like a project, I have like a bunch of clips over here or whatever. So let's say we just want this part here. So in render settings, you can click render, and then render options, and then you could have render loop region only. I really suggest that you should have that on. I think it's on by default now, so very helpful. For my render settings, I use the Magix MP4. I use the HD 1080p 60 FPS option. So for pretty much all my uploads, and that seems to work well with Twitter and YouTube. Now with Twitter, I've noticed that some people have trouble uploading to the normal Twitter site. If you're having trouble, I recommend uploading to TweetDeck, tweetdeck.twitter.com. That helps a lot. And I've never had a failed upload on TweetDeck where I have on Twitter, so your mileage may vary on that one. So anyway, go to whatever render setting you want. Maybe you do want MP4, or WMV for some god awful reason. Click on that, customize template, custom frame size, and then just make it your frame size. Now, I know that there's an allow source to adjust frame size settings. I've tried that. It doesn't really, you would think that would be the same thing, but I just go to custom frame size and put it in manually. It makes it a lot easier. So have that. You could save that as a template if you want, but I just always do it because generally they're random resolutions anyway. And then you just click render, of course. Additionally, while we're on the topic of render settings, a lot of times I've been trying to share a clip of a video that I'm working on Discord. Well, Discord has a very annoying 8 megabyte limit unless you have Nitro. So to get past that, what I've been doing is I go to the, I recommend this as well, the 720p 30 FPS template, and then you click customize template, and then go down, and then your your maximum, click maximum, and either do 768 bits per second or 2 million bits per second. Generally, that'll be under, and then that'll also change your average to the maximum, and you could even change your average down more. Because if it's just for a preview on Discord, it's fine anyway. So to save it, you can name it whatever you want, and then click save up here, and then it'll save it with whatever name that you want. So I have mine saved right here, Discord 2K 720p 30 FPS, and I had the bits per second at 2 million on both, and it works pretty well every single time. It's pretty much always under 8 megabytes unless it's like extremely long, then it can be over 8 megabytes. So now that you have your project settings all set up and everything, download some music. I use 4K video downloader. It's just this program right here where I just paste in the video link. A lot of people I know use YouTube DL. That works pretty well. You can download full playlists from that. But I just found this easier, and I just have, the way my file structure is, I have everything in a single folder in downloads, and then after a while I make a new vids folder of that, and that way I have like my newer-ish video and samples, and it's kind of getting to that point again where I'm about to make another new vids one, and that's just the way I do it because I want all my samples to be right there, and you could organize it more if you want, so whatever. So there's a couple tricks that you can do with Vegas. So like for instance, one that you could do is you could do BPM. So if you go to your project properties and you click ruler, you can click here and then click measures and beats, and then you have it out. 1-1, yeah. I don't know, I haven't used this too much, but note like it's 1 beat quarter. So find your BPM of your song. It's pretty easy. There's online programs to do it, so I'll just do it for the sake of this. But for this song, so it's like 148 BPM. So ruler 148. Apply. Oh, and then you might have to right click here and then click time format, measures and beats as well. Oh, whoops. Don't click that. So here's a trick. Alt drag. So like let's say we have a clip here. I'll just use this other song as an example. Let's just say that this is our sample. And we have this, but maybe we want to use the next part of it. So we can alt drag, and then it'll drag within the same clip. Just like that. So you don't have to, so like before you would have to go like this, find this, split, delete, go back over, split, delete, and then you had it. But now you can alt drag and do that. So that's pretty nice. So I'm gonna do that here to line this up. So now, hopefully, the BPM is right, and it looks like it's close. It's off a little bit. I haven't used BPM much, So I know that some people only use BPM, so maybe they're more apt to help you out with that. But this is pretty close. Maybe it's like 147 point whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to mess with it. I don't use BPM. I just wanted to let you know that the option's there. And it can be very, very useful. What I do is I just look at waveforms because I find it to be a hell of a lot easier for me, and it's less setup time. Another thing that I want to mention is go up here to options, and I recommend turning off quantize to frames. So what quantize to frames means is your cursor and your clips will automatically snap to the frames. So like for instance, if I were to put this down here, and then I move this just moves every frame now. And now that it's 60 FPS, it's a lot easier. But I didn't know, for the longest time, I used 30 FPS and I didn't have quantize to frames off. So basically, I was YTPMVing at 30 FPS with like high BPM songs, which just is hell. So like, for instance here, like you can't just get it right on or close enough, you know? So I really recommend turning off quantize to frames. It makes it easier for visuals sometimes, sure, but your timing will thank you, and it really expedites the process of YTPMVing with that off. I have a couple high 16th note songs here, and it could be pretty hard to pitch that, you know. So it kind of scares a lot of people off when they don't have splits of something, and I find it more of a challenge, and I don't really find splits to be very fun necessarily. But of course, everybody has their own whatever they want to do. So just to show you, for like these high BPM songs or whatever, you can hold Ctrl Shift and then scroll up or down while it's playing, and then that will slow down the region. So like for instance, if I were to loop this here, if I were to loop this here and play it, and then I Control Shift scroll up while it's playing, that'll slow down. And you can see it down here, rate 0.75. So I'm gonna slow it down a bit more. At 0.25 it's not very useful, but yeah. It can definitely help in certain situations to get pitches just right. And a lot of time for like timing for this kind of thing is just kind of guessing, a little bit of guessing, and just a lot of like looping like this. Do so you can hear the timing there. That was just an example. Another one. So you can hear just from that it's not quite just a straight 16th notes. There's even a few 30-second notes in there. Just using it in terms of music logic, but in terms of like timing, if you loop it, then you can hear. So then you can make the loop region a bit smaller, and then when you have your sample up here, up above, it makes it a lot easier. And of course, if you somehow already don't know this, in order to get the pitches to show up or the title, press Ctrl Shift I, and that shows it. It makes it come up. So hopefully that was like one of the first things you learned. If not, I am extremely sorry. So here's another thing. If you have some like quieter clips here, you can press, and you need to see the waveforms of them, and you don't want to make them louder or anything, you can hold Shift and then up and down on the arrow keys, and then that'll make the waveforms bigger or smaller. So by default they're at their smallest. So like a loud song like this, but what sucks about it is it makes everything, all the other waveforms, get larger. So it's mostly just helpful just to see of like a sample or something like that. But however, if you have a clip that's quiet throughout the entire thing, you can right click, then go to switches, and then normalize. And then that'll normalize the audio to its loudest peak, will be the loudest. So imagine just everything getting to acceptable volume, essentially. But what you can do is, like, let's say that this part's too loud, but I'm gonna prank my dad. We want that to be louder. You can just right click, switches, normalize, and see that already makes it louder. And of course, if you don't already know about this, when you click D scrolls through your 4 different pointers down here. So of course you have your normal edit tool and everything, where it does everything that you want it to. Then if you click D again, it goes to this envelope edit tool, and I haven't really used this much. I don't really know what all it does, truthfully. I should probably use it more or figure out, but generally I just skip over this and go to the most important one, in my opinion, of selection edit, which is just one big box. So let's say you have a bunch of clips here, like all strung out or whatever, and you want to delete or pitch them. You can just DD, click that, drag, and then you can pitch them all. You can do whatever. You can click G and group them all, rather than having to control click everything. So yeah, and then additionally, of course, U separates a video or audio track from the rest of its group. So, you know, normally like this, audio and video are grouped. Well, what if I still want this video track, but I don't want this video here? I can just click U and then delete, and then boom, it's gone, and then this is just its own. And then I could group that with this instead. And if I group, let's say, like I just did, I group these 2 audio tracks, then it will ungroup this video track up here. So just watch out for that. Sometimes you can click G and then try to move something later on and then get really confused. And then the last D tool is the zoom edit tool. Most of the time I do this by accident. It's kind of annoying. But basically you can drag and then it'll zoom into like a specific spot. But I don't really ever use it. I find it much easier just to move the playhead, because generally you're gonna want to move the playhead anyway. So I don't really see the point of it. Something else you can do, if you have this selected, you can right click and then that'll make it for this entire area. So like, let's say if you have like a bunch of tracks, it won't, and you just want to zoom in using that for some reason, and also if you right click again, it'll go this way as well. I don't really get the point of it, truthfully, so I just don't use it. And like I said, right click also will do it for the selection tool as well. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, the one that we were all talking about before, of paste event attributes. So let's say I have a bunch of clips here. I want to screen flip every other one. Well, there are screen flip scripts. I believe Keizu made one. I have never used it. I don't know how good it is. I've heard a lot of people use it. I don't know, but I'll link that script down in the description below if you want to try it out. So the way that I've always done it, or that I've learned to do it, event pan crop, right click, flip horizontal, copy that video track, and then right click and control click every other one, every other video, not the audio, just the video. Right click, paste event attributes, and then everything is screen flipped. It's as simple as that. So, but additionally with that also pastes any sort of effects that you have. So if I have like this or something, I don't know. I have no idea what this is. I clicked on a random one and it was like the worst one I could have clicked on. Deform, sure. Funny. So if I copy this and I paste this and then paste event attributes, that will also copy the effects as well. So to counteract that, there is a thing called selectively paste event attributes. You can click that and then you can choose just to selectively paste the event pan crop settings. So that's for screen flipping if you have other video effects and you don't want to copy that to everything. But Additionally, let's say I added some video effect and I want all of these clips to have it. I can right click, select all of these. I can select all of these, right click, selectively paste event attributes, and then video effect effects and effect keyframes. Click OK. And it's got to go through and put them all on everything, and there you go. Now they all have the same effect. So this is just an option, so you don't have to have a bunch of tracks. Essentially, having clip effects is really nice. So additionally, down here at the bottom, you have your enable snapping, which enables snapping to other clips when it gets close. I just always have had this on. It's good to learn it with it on. I think it just makes editing a lot better. And additionally, down here is automatic crossfades. So having automatic crossfades on basically means that whenever you have two clips going at each other like that, they'll just automatically crossfade for the duration of that clip. It's very helpful. I recommend doing that because otherwise you're gonna have a crossfade for a tiny amount and then have to do it manually. And then where's it at? Where's it at? Oh, okay, it's right here. And you'd have to do that for both video and audio. So it's way easier just to have automatic crossfades and then change the duration of that clip instead. Another thing I would like to mention, if you press V will bring up a audio automation for just that track. So you can add a point here. Let's say I want this to zoom, or I want this to go add point, and then let's say we want this to fade in like that, and then right click, set to 0, and then you can even right click on this line, and then you can do slow fade fast, just like the keyframes and everything in a video motion, and it's very useful, very helpful. But, however, by default, the first keyframe, of course, is 0. So you're going to have to add another keyframe point here, then add that to 0, or hold that, or whatever. So I assume that you probably know keyframes and everything. However, when you move this line and you have it on, it'll move that point. So basically move that entire line. So like if I were to move this line, it moves both those points there. So just make sure that you don't mess that up and that you have both on 0. You can just Ctrl Z if you mess it up. So here I'm just gonna YTPMV something and just kind of talk about how I do it and how fast I do it. Generally, whenever I'm like scrubbing through something, I'll play it. I use my right thumb on the number pad enter key, which basically now for a keyboard I have to have a number pad because of how much I use this to play pause. It's just extremely useful to have my mouse right there and then just to play pause with my thumb. I know a lot of people use the space bar to start stop. I prefer play pause rather than start stop, but you know, everybody, it's whatever you want to do. So anyway, whenever I play something, I scrub through by clicking either below or above. So if there's any space below, you can click below and your playhead will move there. But what if you have a bunch of tracks? What if this is all tracks and you're, rather than having to scroll down all the way to the very bottom to move that, you can just click above here as well. Helps quite a bit when you have a bunch of tracks to be able to scrub through something like that quickly and everything. So basically where my hand sits is like WASD essentially. That's where my hand always sits. I have like my index finger on the D key. Use D a lot. I use Ctrl Shift a lot. I use S and delete a lot, which I should probably bind something else to delete, honestly, because currently my hand doesn't move my mouse from there to delete, or other than to delete. Generally, you have to use the plus and minus keys by the backspace bar. So that either requires moving your left hand all the way up there in kind of an awkward position, or it requires moving your right hand all the way over from the mouse to there. So that can get a little annoying. You can rebind that stuff in preferences, excuse me. You just have to look for it. I don't know exactly where it's at. So anyway, the way that I get around that is I have a Razer Naga. So a Razer Naga has all the buttons on the side, and by default, 11 and 12 are bound to the minus and plus keys. So it makes it really, really easy to select something, and I don't even have to move. I don't even have to move anything. I can just press plus and minus right on my thumb, right on my mouse. Makes it really easy. Tomb Raider: The Prophecy. Then X is solo, Z is mute. Another two things I use a lot. Solo and mute can be very useful. Oh, also, before I forget, the automation. Sorry, this is all over the place, but the automation is pretty useful for video as well. You can change the level that it's at, how much it's faded or not. And this will create points too. This is just like anything, like any other keyframe animation thing. So again, you have your fade options here, and additionally, if you have a fade in or fade out, you can right click on that line, and then you can have different curves here as well. So generally, the two that I use the most are this top one and this middle one. This middle one is for fast fade ins. So generally, I'm pretty lazy to press U to change it, and then to group them back together. So if these are both grouped, I'll just fade this and then right click that, and then that'll make it a lot easier for timing. Just another tool that you have. But when you have this automation and then you want to change the entire tracks level, don't forget to unselect that and then to change it, or else if you have your playhead somewhere else and you try to change it, it'll just change it for that spot. So just watch out for that. So if you're ever having troubles finding samples or anything, just watch old YTPMVs. This was a sample used years and years ago. I don't know if Dismo was the first person who did or whatever, but just watch a bunch of videos and you'll eventually get ideas. Because it took me about a few years before ideas started popping up in my head, and slowly, and then they would build up, and then I would have a lot of ideas pretty easily. I know a lot of people have the loop region or loop playback thing turned off. I don't. It's probably more annoying to watch, but this is the way that I pitch. I know a lot of other people will turn that off, and then we'll press spacebar. Also, get used to Ctrl Shift pitching. So you hold Control, or not Control Shift, sorry. Just hold Control, and it'll change the sense value of it. This is for like your sharps and flats, or if the sample is like out of tune or whatever. And if you're ever having trouble with the pitch, you can just click Enter and then Control Shift scroll up. Control Shift plus or Control Shift minus will set it back to default. So that's useful if you have it on ascent and you realize that it's not like 7.5 minus 7.5. It's just 7, so you can just Control Shift and then go back down to 7. I find that to be a lot easier than just sitting there and waiting for control whatever. And Shift plus will put it up an octave, Shift minus will put it down an octave. Oh yeah, and the last thing that I do want to mention, if you have a sample and you want it monophonic, you just right click properties, pitch shift message, elastique, stretch attribute, and then click soloist monophonic. Other people use pro, other people use efficient. Efficient is the default. Kind of experiment with it and you'll get a feel for like what you want when. But monophonic generally just kind of makes that funny vocal stretching thing. Soloist speech I've never used, and it kind of always sounds bad whenever I do. So yeah, just experiment with that, and you'll get a feel for what works and what doesn't. I hope you got something out of it. If you want to see more like this, let me know. If there's anything I missed or got wrong, let me know as well. And if you have any questions, ask in the comments below. Additionally, go check out the YTPMV podcast. This last episode we had the Epic Rob and DWL on, and that's when we made fun of Zarlable for not knowing about paste event attributes. So I want to make this and make sure that everybody knows about this kind of stuff, because it honestly will save you a bunch of time and is really helpful. So yep, thanks for watching.